Line graphs seem simple enough until you try to pack an entire dashboard's worth of interactivity into a single visual. If you've ever tried to push a visual that far in Power BI, you know the setup can get tricky. I recently received an interesting request that started out simple. The user needed to track performance trends across multiple cars. To make sure the data is useful, we decided to layer on some high-level interactivity. First, selecting a specific car from the table visual should completely isolate its performance trends in one view while keeping a grand total view sitting right next to it for an instant side-by-side comparison. Then, we need a drop-down menu to switch between different KPIs inside the same charts. On top of that, a toggle button to swap between different units of measurement. Whoa! Looking at this layout, that is a massive laundry list for a single visual. Today, we're going to build this out using Power BI's small multiples, some data modeling, and a bit of DAX. Here we go. First, let's visualize these KPIs in a line chart. Let's check line chart for this visual. I am going to drop date in the x-axis, format that to date, bringing in car into small multiples, and right away we can see every single car available in our data set. And for the KPIs, I'm bringing in practice miles, qualifying miles, and race miles. I also need to add the total distance, which is a measure that I already created. And this measure sums up all of the metrics. Let's drop that in the y-axis. And let's check how it looks. Now that the chart is looking good, let's quickly rename these KPIs to clean up the legend. There, that looks so much better. Let's select a car from the table to see how it behaves. This is a default cross-filtering interaction in Power BI. The line graph automatically filters down to just that one car to show its individual performance. Our goal, though, is to see the grand total right alongside the KPIs on the chart. My first instinct here might be to simply copy the visual, remove the car from the small multiples, and resize it. Now, let's format this a little bit more. Adjust the title, the legend. Now let's name the title total distance and adjust the font. And there we go. We have the total distance chart. Let's test this setup by selecting a car from the table. As you can see, both the small multiples graph and our new total graph are showing the exact same filtered numbers. We can fix that by easily going to Format, clicking Edit Interactions, and turning off the interaction for the total distance chart. That looks much better. Both the charts are showing correct numbers now. Let's test it by selecting a few other cars. Perfect. The total stays completely unchanged and the individual cars filter exactly like they should. However, when we start making multiple selections, we run into a major layout issue. It creates a vertical scroll bar which hides our data behind the total tile. And we get some awkward overlapping. Clearly, we need a better approach. Let's go ahead and delete this total distance visual. Instead of a separate chart, we want to bring the total distance trend directly into the small multiples layout right alongside the cars. That means total distance needs to become a row item inside our car dimension. Let's see. The total distance needs to be under here. To make this happen, let's jump into Power Query for some quick data transformations. We are going to edit our car dimension table. But first, let's click on Enter Data to create a quick reference table. I'll name this dim helper. Create a column called car and add a row for total distance. Click Next. And now we can use this table and append this directly to our car dimension. Let's click Append Queries. Now let's select the table dim helper and click OK. There we go. Our row item is now added to the master dimension. Close and apply. Give it a second to load. And our new row is ready. Let's go to the report view. And we would expect to see the row item in our visual. Except it isn't showing up just yet. Let's write a dedicated measure to fix that. I'll name this one total distance SM. This will have two variables. The first one is car, where I'm going to do a selected value on car. And the second variable is the total distance, where I'm going to return total distance and remove the filters from the dimension car. And the return value will be if car equals total distance, then return the variable, otherwise return the total distance. Dropping the total distance SM into y-axis. Something definitely changed. Let's see what's going on. The total distance and the total distance SM seem to be working well. Let's scroll down. And there we go, the total distance is showing up perfectly. Now we just need to replicate this exact same logic for the rest of our KPIs. I'm going to start with practice. Let's insert a measure. I'm going to call this practice SM. The first variable is car. The selected value car. The next variable will be practice. This is calculating the practice miles, removing the filters on the car dimension, and now we're going to return if the car equals total distance, then return the variable, otherwise return the sum of practice miles. There we go. Let's go ahead and drop the practice miles SM in the visual. Let's see how that looks. The practice and practice SM is a match. Let's see. There we go. Total distance works well too. Next up is qualifying. So let's add another measure. Going to call this qualifying SM. And we'll write the same logic here, make a few edits. And drop it into the chart. And now we have our qualifying line on all of the dimensions that we have here. And finally, let's do the exact same thing for race miles. Let's drop that into the visual. There we go. Everything looks spot on. And now we can safely remove the old original calculations from our visual. And let's scroll down and look at the total distance. There we go. The total distance is fully integrated into the small multiples layout. Let's do a quick test by making a selection from the table. Looks like the layout works, but the selected car and the total distance look exactly the same. Now we need one more data transformation to make this layout fully dynamic. We already have our total distance row inside the visual, and our DAX formulas are calculated. The piece we need to solve now is to make sure that the data inside these two panels stays properly separated. Right now, making a selection causes the visuals to mirror the same data instead of isolating the car information into one pane and the total information into the other pane. To fix this, we need a mapping table. We want a structure where selecting a car from the table passes a dual filter to our small multiples chart. It needs to tell Power BI to display exactly two things: the selected car showing just its unique data alongside the total panel showing the grand total. To achieve this, I'm going to leverage Power Query to add some transformations. The model will automatically account for new data whenever it comes in. To begin, let's use the dim helper table and add another column called value, adding total distance into this column. And select OK. In our main car dimension, you will see this column appear automatically because we appended the queries earlier. Now I'm going to fill this value all the way up to replace the null values. Next, let's add a custom column, also call this value 2, and this simply returns the car name. From here, we will transform and transpose the data. Promote the first row to headers. Select all of the columns. And now let's hit unpivot. This brings us right back to a clean two-column layout with all the mapped row items we need. And I do see some duplicates here. So let's go ahead and take care of that and clean it up. There we have it, the exact dimension mapping we needed. Now let's rename this column to car and let's close and apply. All the cars are showing the exact same numbers and all the charts look the same. Let's actually head over to the model view to fix that. We need to establish a relationship between our new car dimension and the race data fact table. Let's set the cross filter direction so the dimension filters the fact table. And let's save. There's our relationship. there we go. The numbers instantly look correct and relevant to each car. Now let's test a selection. To make sure the cross-filtering behaves exactly how we want, we need to swap out a couple of fields. On our table visual, we'll pull the car from our new car dimension. Then on our line graph, we'll swap the small multiples field to pull from the new value column that we just built in Power Query. Remember that dual filter setup that we talked about earlier? This is the column that triggers it. Let's test that out. That didn't quite just work yet. We have one more quick adjustment to make inside our DAX formulas. Looking closely at the variables in our DAX measures, they are currently trying to select and filter the exact same column. We need to update the first variable to look at our new value column instead of the original car column. And let's hit commit and check the visual. Perfect, the practice miles now shows 146 for the selected car and 483 for the total distance panel. That's exactly what we want to see. Now let's quickly apply this to the other measures. For qualifying, we'll swap the variable to reference the value column. And now the chart shows 15 and 55. Let's do the exact same thing for the race miles and the total distance. Now the graphs are showing completely independent, accurate data. Let's run a quick test by changing selections, and let's also select all. Everything's working exactly as intended. With our core layout working perfectly, we can start adding our extra interactive layers. The next requirement is a filter to select each of these KPIs dynamically. Let's go to the modeling tab and create a new table, and let's call this measurement. This will just have one column, and I am going to name it measurement, and it has string. My text will be practice, qualifying, race, and total distance. These are the performance metrics that I want in the drop-down. Now that the table is created, let's go verify the data and see if it looks good. There, perfect. All of our options are here. Now we'll write a new measure called selected measure to harvest the user's choice. The first variable will be a selected value from the column, and the return value is a switch statement that evaluates which KPI is selected and surfaces the correct small multiples measure. So we have practice, qualifying, race, and total distance. Now let's head back to the canvas. Let's add a slicer visual and bring our new measurement field into it. We'll clean up the formatting and give it a clear title. The drop-down looks good and everything seems like it's clickable. Now to hook this up to our line graph, we'll remove all the individual measures from the y-axis and replace them with our selected measure. Oh wait, nothing's showing up. Well, let's click around and see. Okay, that works. All right, don't worry, there is a quick trick to fix this. We just need to drop the original measurement column from our new table directly into the legend field of the line graph. Adding it to the legend gives Power BI the structural context it needs to plot multiple lines at once. Now let's test it out. And looks like everything's working and the graph is fully responsive. Now let's go back and add a default into our DAX. Perfect. These are best practices that you need to follow, and let's test this out again. Everything looks like it's working. Time for our final layer. Adding toggle buttons to switch between miles and kilometers. Let's head back to the modeling tab and create another table using the data table function. We'll call this one unit selector. Let's define the column as a string, and let's enter miles and kilometers. Commit, and with our table ready, let's insert a measure, and let's call this unit conversion. My first variable is going to be selected unit. Let's pick a selected value, and my return values will be the selected unit, miles, I'm giving it a 1, and kilometers, the value that we found, and if nothing, then 1, and let's give it a default value and commit. Let's add a new slicer button to the report canvas, drop our unit field into it, and format it as a horizontal toggle button. Now we just need to update our base small multiple measures one last time to incorporate this multiplier. So instead of returning the result directly, we'll store our current logic inside a variable and then return that variable multiplied by our unit conversion measure. Let's test the toggle out on practice miles switching to kilometers. Okay, that bumps up the numbers exactly as expected, confirming the math is working perfectly. Let's quickly repeat this update for qualifying. Let's edit race and total distance. The numbers change when you toggle between miles and kilometers. Now let's take a step back and look at the entire experience. We can select a car, change a KPI, and toggle the units smoothly. Before we do a final showcase, let's perform one last piece of house cleaning inside Power Query. We'll right-click on our original dim helper table and uncheck the enable load. This disables the load on this intermediate staging table completely, and it declutters our interface, leaving only our clean measures, core dimensions, and the central fact table visible in the data pane to work with. And let's see the entire solution in action. A user can select a team, they can adjust a date range slicer, they can pick a specific car from the table visual to isolate its trend line right next to the grand total, toggle between miles and kilometers, and swap out the active KPI on the fly. We successfully checked off every single item on that massive interactive layout request. This approach proves that with a little bit of creative data modeling and a healthy dose of patience, you can get standard Power BI visuals to handle surprisingly advanced user requirements. If you found this dynamic workaround valuable, please like, share, and subscribe. And definitely leave a comment below. Tell me what your experience has been with trying to build complex layouts like this one. And I'll see you in the next one.